Welcome back to Interjections, everyone. Here for a Derby d'Italia recap. I've got Miko, Jay, and Irfan with me. Irfan, how you doing?
Doing well, doing well. Thanks, Andrew. Good. Overall, I guess a decent result. We'll dig into it, of course, but could have been a lot worse. So I'm doing all right. What about you, Miko?
Yeah, I'm doing well as well. Unlucky we couldn't get the win, but it is what it is. How about you, Jay?
I'm out of it is what it is. Disappointed we didn't get the win. Definitely felt like we could have tried harder or kind of given a bit more, but I understand that both teams probably didn't want to risk much more than what they gave, Probably both very happy to settle for the draws. So ultimately, you are right. It is what it is.
Well, let's dive right into it. I was very surprised by how aggressive Juve came out in this match. They took initiative, which I didn't really expect. They were pressing high up the pitch. They were forcing us to make some uncomfortable passes from deep in our ends. And I will say it was mostly mistake-free. There were a few nervous instances, primarily involving Acerbi and Summer, that had me a little worried at the start. But for the most part, we weathered the storm until we didn't. And there was a bad pass that was honestly basically a howler that led to Chiesa getting the ball in a dangerous spot. Chiesa finds Vlahovic, and suddenly we're down 1-0 against a team that's inept again in attack for the most part. So Irfan, I guess, I don't think you can really dispute that it was a bit of a howler that led to the goal, because of the misplaced pass. But maybe how nervous were you after we go down 1-0 on the road at Juve?
Yeah, very nervous. And I think you summed it up perfectly. I think Juventus came out with a lot more energy than we did. They came out to play and they were excited more than we were. I thought we were okay. I mean, I don't think there was a lack of intensity. I think our plan seemed to have been to kind of contain for the most part. So I was okay with the way we started. I mean, they're also at home, so it makes sense for them to come out a little more excited. So it was interesting to me. It felt in the beginning a lot like the match we played against Real Sociedad, where we just had no space, no time, no room. You look at their players, you look at the team lineup, and you're not impressed really at all with anyone other than the two people involved in the goal scoring, which were Chiesa and Vlahovic. And yet, the way the midfield and defense generally performed, I mean, we'll get to our goal later, but the way their midfield and defense generally performed, they gave us no space. I mean, we were closed out almost immediately. There was people in front of us whenever we got the ball. There wasn't a lot that we could do, and we definitely did struggle to keep and move the ball. So when they went up 1 goal, definitely I was extremely nervous because, like you mentioned, the one thing we know about this Juventus team is they're not great at attacking, but they're really good at defending. And so as soon as we went down 1-0, I knew it was going to be an uphill climb. And luckily it didn't take long, but it worked out. On the goal, the only thing I noticed, I know you mentioned there's a holler of a pass. I can't remember now who made that pass, but on the goal, it definitely seemed like De Vrij was kind of caught in no man's land. I think 2 people went with Chiesa, including Darmian, and so De Vrij would have been the person to kind of track the run of Vlahovic, and he left way too much room for Vlahovic. He was kind of just standing in the middle of nowhere. So, I think he needs to do better on that one. But again, when you give up the ball like that and you're kind of off balance, there isn't, too much you can do.
Yeah, it was Dumfries who had the misplaced pass that I'm deeming a howler. Miko, I don't know if you disagree with my assessment. Or
Well,
Jay,
it wasn't a pass. It was I think a Juve clearance that actually was it a pass? I can't even remember now. Actually, all I know is he tried to chest the ball and control it and take the ball, inwards, but then he just he got too much power on the ball, and then the ball spilled, towards the center of the pitch, and that created the or then that led to Vlahovic passing out wide to Chiesa. And I remember it was the second time in the game that something really similar happened. I can't remember whether it was a Juve clearance or a long ball that he intercepted or a long ball from our own defenders. But yeah, there were two distinct instances where Dumfries, essentially his ball control just let him down really badly. And both times, like, it's safer to let the ball, run out, you know what I mean? But he tried to control it and take it into the middle of the pitch. But just, yeah, that's a really dangerous place to lose the ball, you know?
Yeah, I think you're right. So I'm just trying to remember this. It's hard when you haven't watched replays, but I think you're right. He tried to control the ball. He didn't. I thought he was trying to distribute it. Maybe I'm wrong. And then it led to Chiesa taking it, immediately taking on kind of Barella and De Vrij and leading to the goal-scoring chance. Miko, what did you think of the goal we conceded?
Yeah, I think it went exactly like Jay said, that it was Dumfries making the wrong decision. He should have headed it straight away. It seemed like he was about to head, but then he decided to take it with his chest, and then it went bounced off his chest or something like that. And that was exactly what we wanted to avoid at any point of the match, to lose the ball in the midfield to give counters to Juve, because, well, we saw in the goal they are super dangerous when they get those counters. And in general, I think both teams were very, very, very careful in their overall game, that neither team took any risks at all. We just cycled the ball in our defense half of the match almost, and we just didn't try almost anything. It was so risk-free play. I don't know. That's maybe the part I wasn't too happy about. But on the other hand, we saw what happened when someone make mistakes. So, yeah.
So immediately, 6 minutes after conceding, just what a response. I'm not going to lie. I thought this game was over as soon as we conceded. I thought this was going to be a good 70 minutes of Allegri sitting deep, daring us to attack, and us struggling to unlock their defense. So I was just so impressed when we came back 6 minutes later and put together a fantastic team goal. I can't say enough about Thuram taking on his defender, picking out a pass. Lautaro made a great run to kind of, I think, Jay, you put this really well in the forum, kind of fooling Gatti into the positioning to get himself an open shot on goal. So yeah, maybe Jay, break down that goal for me. Just how impressed were you with the response by the team?
Yeah, as you said, I was probably a bit pessimistic in my reaction after conceding that goal, especially the way we conceded it. Just felt avoidable, just felt a bit idiotic. But what can you say? I didn't feel like we had the mettle, the mentality, or the kind of nerve to just play as if nothing had happened and immediately hit back. But that's exactly what we did. Good link-up play along the right flank. I think the commentator said there was only 3 or 4 passes in that entire passage, from Sommer to Darmian to Barella to Sommer, Darmian, Dumfries, Barella to Thuram, and then Lautaro. So, it was just a efficient goal in the extreme. And as you said, for me, the highlight was Lautaro's movement, kind of veering to the left and then just jinking in towards the right, completely fooled Gatti, opens himself up for a nice shot along the face of goal and into that far corner. It was the kind of beautiful finish I've been, wanting to see more from Lautaro for a long time, just a lot of poise, a lot of awareness in how he wants to finish rather than this instinctive just catching, or snatching at the ball, and just kind of lashing his foot out at full power. So what can you say? Just really, really well done to Lautaro and Thuram as well. Just to speak on their goal, I agree that De Vrij was kind of caught in no man's land. I also think the guys were a bit too reverent of Chiesa there. They didn't want to challenge him, you know. They were holding off, expecting him to kind of run at them and, you know, try to like dribble through them or something. But instead he just, you know, stayed very traditional, shall I say, and just stayed out wide and just hooked it in with his left foot on the left flank. So you got to account for that as well. And considering we had two men on him, Damian and Barella, I think one of them's got to go in and actually like challenge him or get essentially within touching distance of him. So you make it difficult, you know, rather than just both guys staying like a meter to 2 meters away from him and just kind of zoning him out. That's, yeah, especially when you have two defenders on him. I don't think that's really acceptable. So all in all, I guess both goals were very similar if you think about it. But yeah, what can I say? Really pleased the guys came back from conceding a goal with a response within like 6 minutes. So let's hope for more of that in the future. It felt like we were not inferior to Juventus, you know. To be honest, I actually think you're giving them a little bit too much credit when you say it was kind of like Sociedad where they overwhelmed us or they were really, you know, playing at a high tempo. I see where you're coming from, but I think in comparison, like Sociedad were on another level. Like if Sociedad played at like a 10 out of 10 intensity, I felt like Juve were no more than like a 6.5, barely 7 at times. I don't think they were really comparable. I just feel like the game itself was a bit pedestrian for the first, 25 minutes. And I felt like we kind of got suckered into that trap of just being a little bit complacent ourselves. Like I said last week, Juventus have this great ability just to drag you down to their level and then kind of catch you unawares. So I felt that's what kind of happened to us. And as you said, they did attack, and even that was, the commentator mentioned being surprised at how Juve was so attacking against us being, the strongest team in the league or one of the strongest team in the league, whereas they are much more kind of careful against these, Cagliari type teams. The commentator was kind of remarking on that kind of oddity, and I noticed it too. But yeah, I feel like we just gave him a bit too much credit to Juve, so that's my take.
Yeah, I think one of the things, I don't think that they were nearly as effective as Real Sociedad, as you put it. But I think one thing that reminded me of that match was, I think one of the things we really like to do is, yes, we cycle in the back a lot with Summer and then our center backs. We also really like to kind of cycle through the midfield to bring the play kind of in, bring the defense in, and then lob it outside to the wingers. And Juve were just not allowing us to do that. They were pressing the midfield in such a way that we couldn't really get the ball past the midfield out into the kind of attacking wings. And so taking that space away, I think, reminded me a little bit of the Real Sociedad match. On our goal, the one thing that I thought was really interesting, and I think some of the commentators on the U.S. side were commenting on this, is that they were surprised that Juventus was a little reckless on that play, in the sense that Rugani really kind of left his position, ran up into the midfield to try to challenge Barella, and Barella had that great kind of one-touch pass to play in Thuram, and that interchange right there completely took Rugani out of the picture. He was nowhere to be found at that point, and it opened up a kind of 2v2 with Gatti and I forgot who the other defender was, but then Thuram and Lautaro. And so that was kind of that lack of discipline from Rugani, or that little gamble by Rugani, ended up being kind of our best and only shot. And that's something that you typically wouldn't see from an Allegri side. You would expect the players to kind of stay much more disciplined. So I think we got a little lucky there. We obviously executed really well, but he completely took himself out of the play and put the defense in shambles because of it. So, good for us to do the quick movement to open that up. But that's the one thing I noticed on our goal. But again, I'm with you, Jay. I felt like I'm not complaining at all about the result because we came back after we were down. But I think what surprised me was when you look at the players that Juventus had on the pitch, like to me, they just, either we were too cautious and we were totally happy with the draw throughout, or we just gave them way too much respect because you look at those names and you're just like, we should be able to handle these guys.
So after you go into halftime, I thought the complexion of the game completely changed in the second half, and where I was willing to give Juve a lot of credit for how they came out and maybe asserted themselves in the first half. In the second half, I really thought they stopped playing. They didn't have a shot on goal in the second half. They began to sit back deeper, concede possession, and to maybe Jay's point from the top of the episode, there's a little bit of a bitter taste in my mouth after that second half because we were definitely the stronger team. In my opinion, we played not our best, but we outplayed them at least. And I'm content walking away with a point, but I thought based on how we played in the second half, you can argue we deserve to win this game and maybe we should have won this game. Miko, what are your thoughts? Are you content with the draw, or do you agree that the game was kind of there for the taking?
Well, I think I'm content with the draw because, yeah, we were better than you were in the second half, but it wasn't like we were able to create too much. Did we create like any proper chances in the second half? I don't remember. We did. There wasn't any space. And nothing like in our goal, nothing like that anymore in the second half. It was like true Allegri terrorist football in the second half, and they just like closed the shop, and we just couldn't break in. So I felt like Allegri forced the draw, and we just didn't want to risk to put more men on the box or anything like that to try to get that goal and then risk some counter with Chiesa or Kane or something like that. I feel that Inzaghi also wanted to like secure at least the draw and not give definitely not give the 3 points to Juve. So it felt like Inzaghi was happy that, okay, we got at least a draw, so don't guys risk anything. And that truly looked like that because it was just cycling in the back, and we tried all kinds of stuff trying to like lure Juve players out of their positions, but it wasn't gonna happen. So I think
I feel like the game was kind of decided in the first half. It really reminded me of like a boxing match or something where both fighters didn't want to get knocked out. They're just happy to, again, rather than going for the knockout, just score points by landing soft jabs from the outside, you know what I mean, and just maintaining a distance. As Andrew said, the second half, the complexion of the game was entirely different in the second half, and it felt like both teams kind of felt each other out on the first half, and once both teams decided, yeah, they're pretty strong, I don't want to lose, essentially. I don't want to risk getting knocked out. Then they just kind of, you see this sometimes. There was like an unspoken kind of agreement to not really try that hard and not really push the envelope. And that's where my, if there is any regret or disappointment for me, that's where it lies. I really feel like we could have risked a little bit more, pushed the pace a little bit harder. As Andrew said, some of the names that they have, man, like Gatti, Rugani, Cambiaso, that Nicolucci guy, was that his debut or something? And McKennie, these are not especially good players. And sure, Allegri deserves credit for turning them into a solid unit, but even still, I feel like we didn't take the opportunity to kind of exploit individual superiority either, like I wanted to see DiMarco running at Cambiaso and Gatti, and I wanted to see us take advantage of Rugani. The one time we did was when we scored, but other than that, we didn't have much opportunity to dribble at them, and the fact that they played this random Nicolucci guy at a critical position at DM, like we didn't pressure him enough. He kind of made some unforced errors too. There's a reason they took him off for a barely fit Locatelli. So yeah, I would have liked to see us kind of pressure him harder, force more errors, steal the ball from him, and all that kind of thing. But yeah, like I said, we just kind of made a unspoken agreement with Juve to not go too hard and just walk away with a point each. And hopefully we don't. We're not that charitable in the return fixture.
The one player who I thought caused the most problems to Juve was actually Cuadrado, who at the end of the match, especially in the last 5-10 minutes, he made a difference. He had an interesting yellow card within 5 minutes of coming on, but then he was able to draw a yellow card tackle from Kostic on what would have been a dangerous counter. He put in one or two dangerous balls. He drew a nice foul. I forget which defender he worked himself around, but he drew a nice foul that led to him putting a free kick into the box in kind of the dying minutes. And I honestly thought he was more productive than Dumfries on the night. Dumfries had a bit of an uncharacteristically poor game. Irfan, I know you're a big Cuadrado fan. What do you think of his return to the team?
Dude, I have to say, he honestly earned my respect today. Like, like you said, he came in and initially he got that yellow card, and I was like, all right, please, let's not go into like some kind of self-sabotage mode here where you're gonna hand Juve something. But he battled and he was up for it. He was aggressive. He was getting viciously booed like every time he would touch the ball, whistled. And but you're right. I mean, he was direct. He was aggressive. I loved the way he played. I loved how just how aggressive he was and how interested he was in making a difference in the limited time that he had. That I'll remember that kind of shoulder to shoulder he had with Keane, where Keane was just like running right at him and he just held his ground, and they both kind of just like went after each other, and then they had some words after that too, and he earned a free kick there. But yeah, that was impressive, I have to admit. And you can tell like he has great control on the ball. His positioning is fine. He's always looking to create an attack. And again, like in the match today, he earned a lot of my respect, and I feel like I'm almost somewhat excited to see him, get some more minutes in situations where we kind of need a spark to go get a goal. Because like you mentioned, Dumfries today was fairly poor, and I thought DeMarco again today was fairly poor. So it was nice. It was a nice switch when Cuadrado and Augusto came on. I thought Augusto played pretty well too. Very solid, more solid, kind of defensively and tactically than DeMarco was. So both of those guys on the pitch was nice, but I was extremely surprised. And like you mentioned, I'm someone who has no love lost for Cuadrado. He irritates me to my core, and yet I couldn't help but respect him after today.
Yeah, he drew like four fouls in the game, and that was the most. And he played like what did he play, like 20 minutes or 15 minutes? I don't know. So that was pretty impressive. He was all over the place, and I like his crosses, his shooting technique or kicking the ball. It's so pure, well compared to someone like Dumfries, for instance. So I'm also excited to see him play later, maybe against Benfica.
Yeah, just on that, Cuadrado's, I mean, he's just a much more technical player than Dumfries and a lot more ambitious as well, I think that conservatism just really can get really tiresome with Dumfries. I mean, it was, my mind just goes back to that Champions League final where we had like a 3-on-2 with Dumfries and there was a player, and like he dragged the defender out to the flank. And again, even though we had a 3-on-2, because there was a defender within within 10 meters in front of him, is like, oh shit, that means I can't proceed, and just kind of stop dead past 180 degrees backwards to the goalkeeper. That kind of tendency he has, or I used to say about D'Ambrosio, and I think the same is true of Dumfries. Sometimes these guys, they play as if a training cone would be enough to stop them from taking advantage, and that's the exact opposite of Cuadrado. He's got a man in front of him. He's constantly thinking, how can I beat him? I'm going to run at him. I'm going to run past him, knock the ball past him, and try to, just get past this obstacle and put the ball in. Sometimes he'll just try to bend across around the defender. But like I said, some of these guys, like, they do my head in. Dumfries, D'Ambrosio, if there's even a training cone on the ground, they're like, nah, I don't want to risk it, and that, like I said, that just irritates me immensely. So having that option like Cuadrado is super valuable. But yeah, I still think the jury's out. He needs to be available. That's a starting point. He needs to be fit and available.
Yeah,
it's kind of like a swagger. It's like in basketball. If you're a player who he thinks every shot he takes is going in, Cuadrado just has that utmost confidence in himself, where like he's like, I got this, bro, and he's willing to go out and take chance. And sometimes it doesn't work out, but when it does work out, you're like, wow, this is great technique.
Yeah, and I feel like Thuram has some of that same mentality when he's playing forward, which has been surprising, I think, for me, not knowing that much about him. He also is not somebody who's shy to take on the defender. He kind of like thrives on getting in close and like muscling someone out, or trying to take on somebody, or dribbling through like two players. Like, it's one of the, like, what's that like quote where like you miss like 100% of the shots you don't take or whatever. So I feel like what Jay and what you're saying, Andrew, is so true. It's like a lot of these guys probably have the ability, whether it's speed, technique, or whatever, like vision, they have the ability to take on their player, or to open up that extra space, or to disrupt the defense a little bit more than they do, and yet they kind of choose not to do it a lot of times. And I agree, Dumfries is very guilty of that. Sometimes I feel like even DeMarco gets into that mentality where he's really kind of afraid to do anything other than just like run up one side and try to lob a cross in. And that kind of mentality, when you have players that can break that kind of mentality, I feel like that's super important. And whether it's off the bench or whether it's somebody starting like Thuram, I feel like we've benefited a lot this year from that type of play, where in previous years we haven't had those players. So I think that's been helpful. The one curious thing that I was just trying to make sense of in my head, like, I know all of us, we've talked about, how a draw away is not a bad result, and, Allegri's terrorist football and this, like, but Jay alluded to it. You look at their midfield, right? They had this Nicolau guy, they had McKinney, and they had Rabiot. And I could not, for the life of me, say that we were the better midfield today overall. I mean, I thought Mkhitaryan had a fairly poor game. Barella was okay. Hakan was okay. Barella had a really nice moment and a couple of nice moments. But I can't figure out why whenever we play Juventus, maybe it's the way they're tactically set up, or the way Allegri just kind of like manages the team. But I can't seem to like figure out what it is that always makes us look like we're just getting bossed in the midfield, especially when you have players that individually are not good. I mean, McKinney's not a great player. And this other guy, this other young kid, like, I'm sure he has potential, but the way that they perform today, and even Rabiot always plays well against us, and he's decent as a midfielder overall, but still, like, you don't feel like we should be kind of outmatched in the midfield. And yet, for some reason, whenever we play them, including today, our midfield doesn't look like it's superior than theirs. And I can't figure out like what it is that they're doing tactically or otherwise that makes it that way. Maybe they're just more physical. I don't know if you all have a view on that.
I think it's because Allegri, I feel like Allegri emphasizes to like stack the midfield in a sense that you need to take the space out of their midfield, and then they just like play well as a team to defend that midfield, so that the opponent's midfield cannot do its things. Like we couldn't do much in our midfield today because there was no space. And our midfield is not like a super technical, like super technical who can do stuff in very tight spaces. So I think that's maybe part of the thing why we couldn't like with our on the paper superior midfield couldn't like do better than this. But maybe it was also because they weren't like willing to take risks or they were instructed not to take any risks. I feel like that's the thing in this game, that no player was allowed to take too many risks. So it was like we saw.
This is a
How
bit of a
about you
side
guys?
note. Yeah, so I was going to say this is a bit of a side note, but I just can't fathom we live in a world where Rabiot is the captain of Juventus in a derby. Like, it just doesn't compute in my brain how this is even possible. But no, I agree. I think it's Allegri's tactics of it's a compressed unit. They've for the most part they're sitting a little deeper. They're close to the defenders. That, to your point, Irfan, they're a bit stronger than ours, and we were never able to get really comfortable on the ball. I think you saw quite a few instances where we're making poor passes, whether it be backwards, laterally. We were kind of playing ourselves into danger and then out of it. And I'm going to chalk it up to their just physical presence, quickly closing down on us, forcing us to make decisions. And when you have players like ours who aren't overly technical, I'd say, in the midfield, when you force them to make quick decisions, they tend to take the safer option. And that's why we ended up going backwards more than forwards for good chunks of today's match. Jay, I want to get your opinion because I know this was one of your fears going to the match. I thought the referee had a really strong game, and I really don't have many qualms with the decisions he made. He thought he let us play. Vlahovic was diving quite a bit. There was a shoulder-to-shoulder against, was it a Cherby maybe, that he was like incessant on a foul for. The referee made the right decision. So just any thoughts there? I mean, clearly nothing came to fruition that cost us the match.
For once, following a match against Juventus, we have almost nothing to, criticize the referees for, which is a welcome change. No controversies to speak of. I think I recall the incidents you're referring to. I mean, there was like one kind of coming together on the near the sidelines that I thought was we got a bit lucky not to get penalized for, which would have given Juventus free kick in a dangerous area. But yeah, honestly, other than that, like, I cannot think of a single incident where which left me cursing the ref, which is normally the case when we play this crowd. So yeah,
I'm ready to question the Cuadrado yellow card. Was he on live picture and definitely in the replay? I thought that he touched the ball first, but did he like touch Kostic foot before hitting the ball?
Probably just the follow through and like the overall kind of he really swung into that challenge at kind of full pelt to win the ball. So these days it seems like even if you do win the ball, you can't really just swing your leg at full power. You can't put that much weight behind any challenge these days. So I guess that's why.
All right, let's transition to talking about our midweek fixture coming up against Benfica. We have a road Champions League game. A lot at stake here as we fight for first in the group. Obviously, Sociedad are running through the competition. We need to do our part here and get a win to set up a decisive fixture with Sociedad in the 6th match week. The reason I'm concerned for this match has little to do with Benfica, but it has more to do with the news that broke today or yesterday maybe about Sanchez's injury. Sanchez is hurt. Sanchez is unavailable, which means we're back down to 3 strikers. Arnautovic played for maybe 5 minutes today against Juve, and I think it's a safe assumption that he's going to start this midweek over Thuram, and we'll save Thuram for the Napoli fixture. So that's one area of concern. Otherwise, I mean, Benfica have just been horrible in Europe this year. We've talked about this previously in the podcast. They're not producing results. It's very unlike them, but they're playing horribly. So you expect a result. You expect a win here, especially based on the way the Champions League has gone to this point. But something about going away in this fixture has to be a little concerning, right? In this away fixture last year in the knockout rounds, we did not play great, and I think it took a late Lukaku goal to really pull away and give ourselves an advantage. So it's a difficult place to play. Irfan, any thoughts as we head into Benfica?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. My biggest concern going into this match is just kind of anticipating the level of rotation that we're going to see because, we're pretty light on the back line right now with Pavard out and Bastoni injured. So there isn't that much we can change around. Maybe we'll see a Bisek start again. But also on the forward line with Sanchez being unavailable, Arnautovic not looking great when he does play so far other than his first match with us. I'm a little concerned about what we'll see in terms of rotation, especially given that we're playing Napoli away next. So it'll be interesting to kind of see how Inzaghi views this. Like, does he play a little more conservatively here and he's okay with like a draw or maybe additional rotation, risking the result because, worst case scenario, we go in and we take on and beat Sociedad at home? Or does he, stay true to kind of his cup winning ways and put out a strong team with minimal rotation and then kind of roll the dice to have that team come out again and play against Napoli? So that's the thing that I think is going to be the most interesting for me. Obviously, if we were going in with our kind of pure A squad, I think we would fairly easily get a good result. But now with so much other kind of factors to balance, it'll be interesting to see what we do. But the team itself, Benfica, like you mentioned, is not particularly concerning. They don't not only have they not gotten great results, they haven't looked particularly good at all either. And so we really should have an advantage even if we are playing away. But again, it's a Champions League, you never know, and who knows what kind of rotation we'll see. So those are the things that concern me.
I think we should do a full rotation as much as possible because the logic is that we can draw this game because we need to win Sociedad at home anyway. Even if we win against Benfica, and then assumption is that Sociedad wins Salzburg, so we need to win anyway Sociedad because they have better goal difference, and I can feel that they will have a better goal difference after the round 5 as well. So we need to win them anyway at home. So the draw is okay for this Benfica match. That's my logic.
You really have to avoid a loss, I think is what you're saying, which is a fair point. Jay, what you were going to say, Benfica have 1 goal so far in the Champions League.
Yeah, they've got 1 goal so far in 4 games. So this is like a historically bad Champions League showing for them. All their flair players just aren't bringing it this time around, and I don't know if they're going to prioritize the league because they're neck and neck tied with Sporting at the top of the Portuguese league table. So maybe they'll also rotate, given that this game is, they're already out of the Champions League. So I guess, who knows what they're thinking. Maybe they'll play a weaker side just to prioritize the league, or maybe they'll want to secure Europa League ahead of Salzburg. But yeah, as Andrew said, we just need to avoid the loss and go into the last game with a chance to beat Sociedad with the freshness to beat Sociedad, because getting that first place seed, or whatever you call it, finishing top of the group is very important for our progression and for our finances. So yeah, let's beat Benfica. I think we can do it even if we rotate. Just on that, I think that's actually a great segue to our defense. Like, Cherby today was a little bit annoying. I felt like his passing was even more conservative than usual when he's playing at that left centre-back position. I mean, it is, away to Juventus, so maybe that played a role as well, or that had a factor in him being even, just more conservative. But I don't know, man. No one likes a Cherby at left centre back, but it was always acceptable for the most part. I think today was one of the first times where I was like, oh, Jesus, just enough of this, we have to find an alternative, whether it's Augusto or Bisek or even Damian, I don't know, but today was the first time that I really felt like I do not want to see a Cherby at left centre back ever again.
I'm just surprised we haven't tried Augusto at left center back yet. I know we don't have any other options at left wing back besides him and DeMarco, and maybe the thought is DeMarco can't play 90 minutes every match, but I'm just surprised. Like, why not put him in at left center back for a start? When you sub off DeMarco at the 60-minute mark, push him up to wing back where you should have some energy left. Defenders tend to run less than other positions. And then if we're trying to lock things down, then you can put on a Cherby or something. It's just a little puzzling to me because a Cherby is such a poor fit at left center back, especially when you play teams with wingers or pace.
Yeah, and I think today he was very acute in his passing. Like, he was standing on the left flank and he was facing, he had his body turned towards Sommer, for example, or De Vrij, right? He'd be facing them kind of in a very front-on stance. And when they'd pass to him, before even kind of looking, opening his body, turning his body outwards to see what the passing avenues were or what the pressing situation was like, he just one-touch it straight back to De Vrij, and he kept doing that over and over again, which was, like I said, frustrating. As the wider of the centre-backs, you need to be able to kind of make things happen down the flank, which is exactly how we scored our goal, right? Sommer to Damian to Dumfries. But what if Damian's standing there literally facing Sommer dead on? He can't pass to Dumfries in that situation, and that's just how Cherby tends to play, at least when we're kind of trying to build out from the back sometimes. And he makes those runs forward, which is commendable, but it seems like, well, the team just doesn't trust him to really make anything of it. So he'll make that run forward, make that overlapping run, but no one ever picks him out. Whereas people do make an effort to play Bastoni in when he goes for that overlapping run, because they know that Bastoni's left foot can lead to, or can lead to assists and making those good plays. But Cherby just lacks the technique, lacks the vision, lacks the finesse and the speed, and I think we have a big detriment to the way that we want to play with a Cherby in that position. So, like I said, I really, really want to see us find an alternative there. And personally, I hope it's Bisek. I mean, we have this young resource, and if today's game against Juventus showed, what's the worst thing that can happen? They started some random. I was going to say 17, but I don't even know how old this Nicolosi kid is, because today was the first time I'd ever heard of him in my life. They played him starting in a Derby d'Italia, and they came away, more or less fine. 1-1 is fine. What's the worst that can happen, Bisek is a more experienced player than this Nicolosi kid. So, what's the worst that can happen? Just play him. Just to wrap up on the idea of playing DeMarco and Augusto together with Augusto as centre-back, I think that's just, kind of standard Inzaghi conservatism there, not using your two left-backs at the same time. You know what I mean? What happens if DeMarco gets injured, or what happens if Augusto gets injured? You can't bring one of them off the bench, if you've got both of them on the pitch together. So it's probably just, kind of conservative management of resources, which is more reason to use Bisek there.
I'm sympathetic towards it only because we are in such a dire straits when it comes to injuries right now. Like it's tough. There's not much depth left in defense or attack, so I'm somewhat understanding of that argument. I just think back to his first year here when he insisted on playing DeMarco as a left center back and occasionally moved him to wing back when Perisic came off. Tactically, I think this could work. From an injury standpoint, I get your arguments. So, honestly, I think that's really all there is to discuss on Benfica. Maybe we can do some match predictions before we move ahead and talk about Napoli. Irfan, if you want to kick us off.
Yeah, so tough because there's so many different things that can happen given the lineup that we'll play. But I'll predict a 1-1 draw actually on this one for us. I don't usually predict draws for us, but I'll go 1-1 draw.
Migo?
I'm going to go 0-1. We're going to win. We're going to find the goal somewhere and get the 3 points.
Jay?
Yeah, I'm feeling a draw as well, to be honest. I just can't remember the last time we played a Champions League campaign where we did some, Bayern type shit, getting like 16 points or whatever. We just don't do that, you know what I mean? So we're usually big fans of the 2-2-2 kind of Champions League campaign, you know what I mean? The 2-2-2 group stage, classic 8 points kind of thing, 9 points. So we're already well ahead of that. So yeah, I have difficulty seeing us, just smashing it and getting like 5 wins and a draw or something like that. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the last 2 matches come down to a draw. So yeah, I'm going draw on this one as well, especially considering that we're likely to rotate, or at least I hope we rotate to an extent. I think Aslani should start, which is ridiculous for me to say.
Love it.
But you gotta kind of just manage your resources carefully here. I've been saying for ages that this Juventus and this Napoli were there for the taking. Hence my regret at not getting the win against Juventus, especially considering how little they really worried us in the second half, right? But Napoli's the same. They're right now they're in chaos with 2 ridiculous management choices. And point is, I want to see us go there and stamp our authority and win. We can't. I don't like looking at in terms of like San Paulo's been or the Diego Maradona has always been a traditionally difficult ground for us, or we've only won once in our last 14 visits to Juventus Stadium. Like, who gives a shit? Like, look at the players they're putting out and tell me that we can't beat them. You know what I mean? Furthermore, look at the way they're playing and how little they even bothered us in the second half and tell me that we can't, beat that. Same applies for Napoli. I want to see us go to Napoli and I want to see us win. Therefore, let's rotate the bag here against Benfica and just do what we need to as long as we don't lose. And even if we do lose, that kind of sets the stage for, let's just say hypothetically we lose here against Benfica.
Yeah.
Is that more impetus to put out the best side against Sociedad in the last match so that we win? Or is it, more reason to kind of just throw the last match?
If we lose to, let me just think through tiebreakers here. If we lose to Benfica and Sociedad,
assuming Sociedad smash,
if they beat Salzburg,
Leipzig,
so we're down
Salzburg 5-0.
Yeah, then we're down 3 points going to the last match. Now, is the tiebreaker head-to-head at that point? So if we beat Sociedad, we're through with like 13 points apiece? Or is the tiebreaker goal differential? I would assume it's head-to-head, but I am not positive.
I thought it was goal difference. This is the kind of thing Miko is
Miko, you're the expert on this.
Yeah, it's the head-to-head. So actually we can even lose to Benfica as long as we win Sociedad at home.
So there is no reason to try to win this game against Benfica is what I'm hearing, because no matter what happens, we just need to beat Sociedad.
Well, there you go. Play Agume and Klaassen then. Let's just do
That's
it.
what I'm saying. Like, it starts young Sar. If what you're saying is true, then there is truly no. If what you're saying is true, then it doesn't matter what happens against Benfica because Sociedad we need to beat Sociedad. That's the only way we're through.
Yeah, goal difference doesn't matter. They can destroy Salzburg 15-0 for all we give a shit as long as we beat them on the last day. And we finish the group top.
Or unless they draw or lose against
Salzburg.
Then a draw might be enough for us, right? Against them. So that's the only marginal incentive. But I agree. Like on a pure analysis, like kind of basis, like there's not much for us in this match. We have to go into the home fixture against Sociedad and just beat them.
Okay, I confirmed head-to-head result is the tiebreaker. So
yeah, and to that effect, like I said, the focus is Napoli. Like I said, I don't care if away at Naples is a traditionally difficult ground. Well, Napoli have been untraditionally shit this season, and they are right there for the taking. It's an opportunity. They're vulnerable, and that should have more weight to us. That should have more importance to us than, San Paolo is a difficult place to go. No, Inzaghi should be saying these guys are, in a difficult situation right now. They're right for the taking. Let's go exploit that and win. And so, if that informs the way we roll out against Benfica, then so be it. Like we established, if anything, now I want to lose the match more than anything. While playing Sar and Agume and Stankovic or whatever. So, let's just see some smart rotation here. Is the point? No more Mkhitaryan for 90 minutes, please. Fucking Sanchez injured again. That's such a
cheeky Aldero start. Are we gonna see that?
Go for it. Play Aldero. I'm serious. I've always said Aldero is nowhere near as bad as Inter fans kind of think he is. So play Aldero. Give Bisek another start. Play Aslani for 90 minutes for once. And Klaassen's been, biting his Klaassen's, hair transplant is looking fantastic. It's ready for public kind of display. He's ready to be seen out there without a hat on. So let's.
And I have been saying Summer does look tired. I can see it in his leg movements.
Exactly. So,
all right. Well, I'm going to take. We got some groupthink going on. I think you've talked me into predicting a 0-0 draw. But start for Tazy, start Aslani, start Arnautovic, start Augusto, just start Cuadrado, assuming he has 45 minutes in him. Just put all the reserves in. We've got nothing to lose here, and get ready for Napoli.
Exactly.
So on that note, Napoli, brutal fixture list, man. My dad was over watching the Juve match with me, and he asked the somewhat joking question, are we even going to bother going back to Milano before this Benfica match? We're living out of a hotel for this week, it seems. So off to play Napoli next weekend. Our old friend Walter is back managing Napoli. I can't believe Mazzarri is managing a game in 2023, but that's probably besides the point. It's probably a bad news for us, honestly, because Rudy Garcia is such a horrible manager and such an obviously poor decision by De Laurentiis that it's kind of unfortunate we don't get the privilege of playing him. But we go to Napoli. Napoli also have European competition. Let me see. I don't actually know if they're playing this week or not, or if they have the week off. Napoli have Real Madrid on Wednesday. So let me just look at this situation real quick. So Napoli are playing Real.
Same time as us.
And they are not quite safe in their group. So there was a scenario where they need a point in this game. But I will say, just given it's an away match against Real, I'd imagine they're not going to try very hard to win, and they're going to basically try to get the job done in their last Champions League match against a pretty poor Braga team. So Napoli should be rested. If we talk about Napoli's performance in the league this year, like this is definitely not the same Napoli we saw last year. It's considerably more up and down. They're not scoring goals at a very prolific clip. Their defense has been surprisingly okay. I think, to me, my big takeaway with them is like their wingers are not as good as they were last year. The guy from Georgia, whose name I wouldn't even pretend I know how to pronounce, has not been good for almost a year now, in my opinion. And really, their best player, based on performances I've seen from them this year, I honestly think their best player has been Politano.
I knew that was coming.
You knew it was coming. It's the homerism in me. Just I love a former Inter player, but yeah, they have not impressed me. I think Politano's been their best player, and I understand going and playing Napoli away is a difficult fixture, but this is a winnable game. Like, this is not a super competitive Napoli team, and honestly, for me, my biggest concern is I just don't know what to expect when you're playing. Is this Mazzarri's first match, or he's already played a match? Regardless, you're playing a manager who's new. Usually teams get a bit of a dead cat bounce following that, and it's just a bit of a wild card factor for me. So that's probably the part of this I'm most worried about. Irfan, tell me why Politano is not going to score against us.
No, while you were talking, I was thinking the same thing, that Politano has probably been among their best players. It's come to that point where, like, he's such a one-trick pony, but it's such a great trick. And so it's one of those things where you know what he's going to try to do and you know what he's going to most likely do, and yet he does it, and he's able to pull it off with more regularity than I think anyone would want to admit. So I agree with you overall. And then Osimhen's still injured for them, right? So, like, he's not going to play.
No,
And so,
he's not.
yeah.
He's not injured anymore.
Oh,
He
he's not.
played
So,
against that. He played against Atalanta.
oh,
Unfortunately for
all right.
us.
Well, yeah, he's probably like the biggest, obviously, like, danger for us. But yeah, this is one. I kind of go back to what Jay was saying, which is, yeah, historically it's a tough fixture. It's a tough place to play. I mean, they're the defending champions, but there's just so much. There's just so much more to the story than just looking on a piece of paper and saying it's Napoli away and they won the championship last year. So there really is no reason for us not to win. And I think, unlike playing against Juventus, I think we're going to be in a pretty good situation in this match to kind of play our game. I don't feel like Napoli can prevent us from playing the way we like to play, which I think Juventus was able to do. So I expect us to play pretty well. I just, Politano and the Georgian guy, who I also will not try to pronounce, Kavara, is as far as I'll go. And then Osimhen are probably kind of the dangers. Obviously, Napoli also have a good midfield, so I'm not taking anything away from the quality of the team. But really, it's the fixture that, like, we should go out and win and stamp our authority in and play really well, especially if we're able to do a little bit of um, resting against Benfica when we play them this during the middle of the week. The one thing that concerns me, and I know Jay mentioned it a little bit, we talked about it, but we've talked a little bit about how so far this year, DeMarco hasn't been that great in the last couple of matches, notwithstanding the wonder goal that you just had to be in the stadium to witness, really, the glory of it. I will say that DeMarco has not looked that great either, and I think part of the reason is that he does miss Bastoni, and Bastoni for this year hasn't been that great either. So I think that entire side is struggling a little bit, and Bastoni definitely gives us a much better chance in kind of the build-up on that left side that will sometimes allow DeMarco to get some space and free up. And Acerbi just doesn't do that. So that's one kind of offensive kind of game plan, I think, that we rely on quite a bit that just hasn't been there recently. And so that's the one thing that concerns me on the kind of offensive side of the ball, which is we're not really getting the best out of DeMarco because of that situation. And I feel like this would have been a good match had Bastoni been there, for Bastoni and DeMarco to kind of dominate that side. So I'll see kind of how that plays out, but I agree, it's a match that we should go in and win, if we get a draw, I don't think it's the end of the world. But I think it'd be a disappointment if we don't win.
Okay, it's Kvaratskhelia, the name. But about the match,
one more time, slowly for me.
Kvaratskhelia.
Yeah, I'm just gonna call him Smith.
Okay. Anyway,
let's call him Boy George.
I think you guys are very, very like demanding to like expect a win and nothing else. Because if the record says that, okay, we haven't won there apart from what was it? One game in past 14 times. Was it that much? That sounds like I think there's a reason for that, because Napoli hasn't been like that great in all those years. So I think
that was us. That was us traveling to Juve.
Okay.
Also, point Walter Mazzarri is their manager.
Okay, but anyway, we haven't been like great there. I remember one match we won. There was Lautaro and Lukaku scoring goals. That's the one away win I remember. But I think we haven't been like great there, and the stadium plays a big part in that. But apart from that, I also think that we have a good chance to win that match, because Napoli won't play like Juve plays, so they probably will give us space in their defensive zone, and we will hopefully exploit that. We should just play pretty conservative in terms of like not giving them any space, because Osimhen is back now, and well, I don't know what's his form. I didn't watch the Atalanta match, but he's fast, and we don't have proper rotation in our defense. Mazzarri was mentioned already. He's not great there. So
Bisek is pretty fast, isn't he?
Yeah, but he's Bisek, and he has like 10 minutes experience in Serie A. So
come on, man! You saw, like I said, we saw Nicolosi, and
yeah, but
something like that name just.
Yeah, but he's Italian. He's played in Italy, so that's a bit different.
You wanted to say you saw Nicolosi pocket Barella for 87 minutes.
I was just gonna try to rhyme pussy with Nicolosi somehow, but I didn't want to be classless,
Look, if you want this podcast to grow and gain advertisers, these aren't the kind of jokes you can be making, Jay.
Exactly.
BMW just pulled out of their multi-year sponsorship.
If we want this, whatever his name is, the Finnish entrepreneur's interview, we can't be going around, trash talking.
But yeah.
On the note of sponsorship, I think I could do better than what we've been doing recently. Qatar for 1 million. That's got to be a record low for Qatar. Qatar Airways, I mean.
I don't know if they've ever invested less in something than they did in us. I will say that we were at the match, and there's this huge pre-match presentation. They have this like banner on the field. They're projecting the lights. Everyone's pumped, thinking, man, this is going to be an awesome introduction. I think Miko's filming it on his phone. Like, we got to capture this. And it ends up being a Qatar Airways commercial. It was pretty great. Anticlimactic, to say the least.
That was probably what they paid for. Just, as 1 million for that commercial, debut. And that's it. Money's gone.
I think the plan is for them to become the main kit sponsor next season. I don't know. Maybe we can get Verratti on loan once we sell Barella. Anyway, let's go back to talking about the Napoli game. Jay, break down this match for me.
It's hard to say. I mean, I know I said that Napoli are an opportunity there for the taking. I do mean that. But Mazzarri is such an unknown entity. I was watching the Atalanta-Napoli match expecting Atalanta to demolish Napoli, but Atalanta was surprisingly toothless. That might have been because they played the Ketelara for like 70 minutes or whatever. But
should have started Skamaka.
Maybe they could have if he was fit for a change. But I don't know why he wasn't starting, but whatever. Look,
remember what Spalletti said to him.
Yes, exactly. Skamaka needs to grow up.
Look, I'm tired of incompetent, mediocre Italian managers like Gasparini and Spalletti ruining Skamaka's career. He needs
not seeing his talent, right?
He needs the mentorship of Moyes at West Ham. That's what he needs.
He's out for
it wasn't not grow up. It was wake up.
Oh yeah, that's it. That's it. He needs to wake up. Yeah. What were you saying, Irfan?
I thought he said something like he's out for a snooze or something.
Yeah, exactly. Napoli. I think they lost Oliveira. I'm pretty sure their left back went off with a pretty, or not an insignificant injury against Atalanta. So they were playing our old boy João Jesus at left back. But I don't know what's up with Mario Rui, whether he's injured as well. But other than that, they seem to have a pretty, first choice lineup. I don't know what the situation is with their defenders. Natan is now first choice, I guess, alongside Rahmani, with Kim obviously having left. I think the only players they're missing are, the left back Oliveira and potentially Osimhen, who came off the bench. I don't know if he'll start against us or whether they'll keep him on the bench and ease him back into the starting lineup. But for some reason, I'm just not that worried about them. Like the bigger thing, other than them being managed by Garcia and all that, was that the magic just seems to have disappeared. Like they're laboring for results. They're not like just blowing teams aside on this fantastic winning run like they did last season, where it seemed like they were a team of destiny. This season seems the exact opposite. They're hitting, realities hit them hard. Injuries, sales, disharmony in the squad and management and ownership levels. So yeah, I'm just not that worried. I don't expect us to blow them out of the water. Having said that, I could see us winning 2-1 or 1-0, or I could see us drawing. So you know what? I'll say 1-0 or maybe 2-1. Calhanoglu penalty.
Hey, like clockwork, he doesn't miss. Miko, I guess the one guy we haven't talked about yet, who I want to get your thoughts on, is Raspadori, because he's been starting, obviously, with the injury to Osimhen. He's been starting for Italy, actually, or at least splitting starting duties in the national team. So, and even when he doesn't start as a striker, sometimes they're deploying him as a winger. Just curious your thoughts on him. I know he was a player we were linked to a bit. Do you think he can give us some trouble?
Yeah, I think he was pretty good for Italy when he's getting his minutes there, and also for Napoli. He's like that kind of a small guy, who's really like agile and fast and accelerates pretty well. But then he also has like a cannon of a shot. So I feel like he can trouble us, because I can see a scenario where, okay, we are leading in the second half, then Mazzarri brings Raspadori in, and Napoli is piling pressure on our half, and I don't know, doesn't feel good to see Raspadori there, because to me he's a very dangerous player. Yeah,
more so than Osimhen, you reckon?
Well, maybe not, but I'm not sure how fit Osimhen is at the moment. But at least he started against Atalanta, so I guess he's fully fit in a sense. But of course, the match fitness is different. But I would guess that Osimhen will start, but Raspadori will definitely come in at some point.
All right. Well, I guess we can move to predictions. Jay already gave his. Miko, what are you thinking? It sounds like you're maybe not expecting a win.
Yeah, I don't know. I like to predict Inter win, so I'm gonna go 1-2 Inter win. Not gonna go even with the draw.
Now, here's a question I asked the audience at home. Has there been a match this season where Miko did not predict an Inter win? Now, you're right more often than not.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think he has predicted a win every single time.
To be fair, we've only not won 3 games or 4 games now with Juve. So, you're mostly right. And just, I love it. Irfan, what do you got for me?
Yeah, this is a tough one. I mean, Napoli still have that Zielinski, Lobotka, and Guisa midfield too, right? I mean, all 3 of those guys are still around.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, they're a good team. I know they haven't performed that well this year, and a lot of that is, I think, due to Rudy Garcia and to Osimhen being injured. So they're still a dangerous team. But again, I'm predicting a win here. I think we're going to be well rested coming out of that Benfica match, and I think we'll have a bit of a bad taste in our mouth not having beat Juve. I think we'll come out for it, and like I said, I think Napoli are dangerous, but they're not going to prevent us from playing our game. So I'm actually predicting a pretty exciting match, and I think we win the match 2-3.
Look, it's 2023. I absolutely refuse to pick Walter Mazzarri playing a 4-3-3 beating this Inter. I just can't do it. If you want a more technical, tactical view of things, I do think the weak point of this Napoli team is their defense. Natan is horrible. I have not been impressed with him at all as a signing. Romani is fine. I'm not opposed to him as a player, but when I look at the way Lautaro and Thuram are playing right now, I just can't imagine a scenario where this Napoli defense is able to slow them down. I mean, they're bringing in Juan off the bench. I refuse to give Mazzarri a vote of confidence. This is going to be an easy 2-0 Inter win.
You haven't. Wow. You're not buying into his. Have you seen his appealing to the media? He's like, "Oh, I'm a new Mazzarri. I've spent a year learning and studying," and he's like, "Oh, I can play 4-3-3." And he also said, "Oh, I don't complain anymore because everyone says Mazzarri complains." Like he's going really out of his way to try and pander to the media, to the fans, and try and sell himself because everyone knows that this is a joke of a signing. Mazzarri in 2023 is not a serious. It's just not something you do if you're really serious about your team. So. Yeah, it's funny. It's comical to see him having to actually try and justify his own,
existence.
Exactly.
Yeah, he came out and he's like, I've studied every Spalletti move this team made the past 2 seasons. I have them all memorized. All I'm saying is after we beat them and after they go into a mini slump, there's going to be a retiro. And there's going to be a point where he tries to shoehorn a 3-5-2 into this team. I promise you it's going to happen at some point this year.
It was funny about that when he said that he's not going to complain as much, and then he took a yellow card at 32 minutes or something in the Atalanta match.
But did he chew a water bottle?
I didn't see that. But actually, now that I'm checking, it was actually Raspadori starting in that match. So Osimhen, not ready yet. I was
going to say about Mazzarri, his excuse about the rain is right up there with Pioli after the recent derby, saying we were the better team for 4 minutes or something like that, or only one team had possession in the first 4 minutes. We were good until it started raining. That's 2 of my most memorable manager quotes.
That's great.
I've done a pretty good job blocking his entire first stint at the club out of my memory, but the one part forever ingrained in it is when he was playing that Algerian striker at right wing back. What was his name?
Belfodil.
Belfodil. Yeah.
Yeah, that's his legacy to me.
How about benching Zanetti for Jonathan?
Okay.
Forgot about that one. Oh,
there was a lot of I just remember this horrendous 3-5-2 with Guarin playing as like some second striker / AM hybrid abomination behind Palacio, who himself should have been that, the second striker behind Icardi, but I think Icardi was injured for most of Mazzarri's first season, but Jesus, that was some garish football with Nagatomo being a protagonist somehow, just Mazzarri's football uses the wing-backs so much that they inevitably end up, with pretty high numbers in terms of goal contributions and whatnot. So, people buying into this illusion that Nagatomo and Jonathan were respectable footballers and that Mendel was somehow this, good midfielder because he had high passing stats and high passing accuracy and all this, and him trying to turn us into this Napoli light we had Campagnaro and we were seriously trying to sign the likes of Zuniga and Christian Maggio and Valon Berami and stuff like this. It was just nightmare after nightmare after nightmare. I can't believe so. We managed to survive that era of Inter. But having said all that, people say that that Spalletti was the one who kind of corrected us and got us, out of the wilderness. I will credit Mazzarri for being like the precursor to Spalletti in a way. We were in free fall. I think we'd finished 9th the season before that under Stramaccioni, and he at least got us back to 5th where we were, where we went from being a complete joke to being like a kind of, what do you even describe that? Like one of these fallen giants on the, taking the first step to recovery. So I'll give him like the tiniest bit of credit for that.
He got us back to Europa League playoff matches. So,
exactly what we played against the likes of.
I can't get over that that triangle of like Jonathan, Guarin, and who did you say the other midfield that we had? Oh, Medel. Like that just envisioning those three trying to like interplay. Just I can't help. I've been laughing out loud for like the last 2 minutes just on mute because it's just unbelievable to me that we sported a team like that and a Wallace on loan as well.
Wallace from Chelsea on loan, and who else do we have? We had
Rolando.
Rolando was good. I remember
he
Rolando.
Scored our only goal against Juve that year. Yeah.
I remember us. I remember being upset that we didn't sign him because this was one of just many. Exactly. One of many just idiotic transfer decisions that we had to endure during this time. And I can't remember whether Branco was still the GM at this point or the SD at this point and Acilio was like chief scout or something. But I remember Rolando playing quite well, given the context. And then we could have signed him for like 2 million or some really negligible fee, but we tried to negotiate it down and failed to secure him. And just all these banterish decisions, just one after the other. It was ridiculous. And yeah,
the game that will never escape me is we're playing Napoli away with Mazzarri as manager, and we go down. I think we were down like 3-1 maybe, or 3-2, something like that. And then Alvarez gets sent off, and we immediately collapse. Like we were feeling ourselves. We felt like we were going to pull. We were down like 3-0. We made it 3-2, I think. And we're feeling okay. We're feeling like we can get the draw here. Alvarez gets sent off, and we get roasted.
Ricky fucking Alvarez. What a player that guy was not. I mean, when we signed him. Yeah, Ricky Maravilla. He changed his name from Alvarez to Ricky, on his shirt. I mean, that's feeling yourself, if anything ever was. I remember when we signed him from Vélez Sarsfield, no one had a fucking clue who this guy was, except that he was some kind of potentially fast winger or something, and then ended up playing as a CM, and forever had this weight, this albatross around his neck because he was consistently compared to Vidal, and that weird apparently chosen him over signing Vidal for the same amount of money, which was 11 million at the time. And then, of course, he went to Sunderland with an obligation for 20 million if they didn't get relegated. They were not relegated, and so they had to sign him. But then I think they didn't pay us or something like that, or they tried to sue us because
they tried not to pay us, and it took us to court saying, I don't really know what they were trying to argue, whether it somehow
was
that
the injury.
He was injured.
He was injured, and they wanted to operate on him, but we blocked the operation, assuming that would impede his ability to contribute or whatever. And they were saying that's why the contract was breached or whatever. I have no idea what ended up happening. I do recall, at this point, several years ago, seeing that some court had upheld the decision and that Sunderland did have to pay us, but I never saw any of that money. You know what I mean? So I have
it was used to pay Kuzmanovic and Dodo's salaries those years.
I think they paid us.
They did. One. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Who do you think Sunderland are? Digital Bits or something?
Anyway, all right. Well, that concludes Banter-era Memory Lane. Tune in next week when we rehash the second Mancini era.
Please no. That's somehow almost as bad as the Mazzarri era. Yeah. Because I had genuine hope. I thought Mancini was the right person. I remember even long before Mazzarri got sacked, I remember saying, just chatting out loud, saying, Mancini is free. Now is the time to bring him back. And then, after one, what happened? I think it was.
Then he sold our generational prospect for Kondogbia.
I think did Mancini. No, that's right. He came on board. We were leading the league for like the first 15 games or something. Yeah, exactly.
Then Felipe Melo had the meltdown against Lazio.
And then Felipe Melo tried to kick someone's head clean off their shoulders. We lost at home to Lazio, and then our season just completely unraveled. And I think we finished fourth, which at this point was still not a Champions League spot because we only had 3 at that time. And then going to the next season, he left after having differences with Suning because they bought all of fucking Kia Jurabchian's clients like João Mario and Kondogbia and
he raged because stuff. He wanted Yaya Toure, they got Joe Mario, and somehow he was still right in the end.
Yeah, he wanted a 35-year-old Yaya Toure and wanted us to pay him 8 million per season or something like that. And like you said, somehow that ended up being correct instead, and which is incredible to think about. But let's stop while we still can.
Let's not ruin next week's episode.
I want one full episode dedicated to Frank de Boer, though, at some point.
Mate, he beat Juventus.
I'll talk about his time at Atlanta United. All right. Well, that wraps up this. Did I get a prediction from everyone for the Napoli match?
Yeah, you did.
1-0.
All right, cool. Well, that'll wrap up this week. We'll be back next week to break down the Benfica and Napoli fixtures. Have a good one, everyone.
See you later.
All right. Bye.
Thanks.